Okay, so first story. I've never seen this happen before, but there are a couple restaurants that I don't think are intended to be eaten in the car. You don't really take them to go and eat on the road trip, you know. Taco Bell kind of strikes me as one of those. It's kind of hard to eat Mexican food while driving. Chinese certainly seems like one of them. And I was traveling somewhere. I don't remember where I was. And I was stopped at an intersection of a four-way stop. And I look over and I see this woman eating Chinese food while driving. She's got the to-go plate thing that they've got the to-go box, you know, open, and she is just funneling Chinese food into her body. And I thought, I don't know that I would ever need to be somewhere fast enough or quick enough that I would say I will risk eating. Because I mean, what do you do? Is it like chopsticks? What's she doing?
I wondered if that's
trying to spin everything around like noodles. And I thought, man, that is strange. I've never seen that before. But I will tell on myself, there was one time and only one time that I tried to eat Taco Bell while driving. I learned my lesson and I will never do it again. It is not meant to be eaten in the car unless you're going to stay still. And so, that's something that I saw that I've never thought I would see, is somebody eating Chinese food while driving down the road, and certainly was hoping that she got pulled over, because I think the funniest thing that you could get a ticket for is eating Chinese food while driving.
It seems a little amateurish, man.
Kind of does. I
think you could eat Taco Bell. I think I've done it, man.
All right, we'll do it tonight.
We'll do it, man.
We'll see how you do. 2-hour drive, and windy roads. Because the reason I did it was I was in a back road, trying to head to a place, and they made me go through a specific city or town probably, and the only thing open was Taco Bell. And it was kind of one of those, if I don't get dinner now, I'm probably not getting dinner tonight. And so, the lesser of two evils was I'd rather eat Taco Bell in the car. I like to get the tacos, though. I could eat a quesadilla. That's fine. It usually stays intact. But those tacos, that meat just falls right out.
Challenge accepted.
Well, good luck, because we're going to make it happen. Brother Charles, it's good to have you back. The premise of this show is very laid back. I remember growing up, and I've said this a lot on the show, but I try to tell the new guests this every time, that I would hear preachers tell stories, and I believe that all of you were lying, that there was no way that those stories could happen, because it just seemed too sensational of a thing. And then as I got older and then got into ministry, I realized, there's some crazy stuff that takes place with preachers. And so we love to have people sit down and tell us some of the crazier things that may have happened to them that they're willing to go on record and tell us. We often have people tell us during the summer that this is one of their favorite shows to listen in the road, on the road trips that they take. And so you said you had about 3 stories from Russia that you wanted to tell, and that coincides perfectly with the last episode we did, because Wayne told his story about going into a mafia restaurant for the Russian mob or something. And so, Brother Charles, take it away. Whatever you got, hit us.
Well, I believe all of us have been told when we go on mission trips, and the Lord has blessed me with opportunities to have gone to Russia about 30 times. And it's just been a blessing to my life. But you have to be willing to laugh at yourself, because they're going to laugh at you as an American going and trying to, number one, to speak the language. And Wayne can identify with this, and Michael, you probably also. But when you try to speak the language, my interpreters would say, be careful that you know exactly what you're going to say, and the words you're using are the words that your interpreter has given you, because if you use the wrong word, it can backfire. I remember being in the home of one of a family over there in Russia, and a very sweet lady had made a wonderful meal for us. And I said, I want to compliment this lady for the cake she has made. It is a delicious cake. And I want to tell her in the Russian language how delicious it was. Well, my interpreter told me the words to use. And when I used the words, I used the words to describe her delicious cake. Everybody around the table broke out in laughter. And I said, what did I tell that lady? I tried to tell her her cake was delicious. And the translator said, well, the words that you used that you thought were the right Russian words, translated this way: you told this lady her cake tasted like methane gas.
It's quite a difference.
No, I didn't say that. I'm trying to tell her it was delicious. But no, the words you used, Charlie, were words that were translated to her. Her cake tasted like methane gas. So my lesson to learn in this funny thing that happened, it really happened, was to really be careful that you use the correct words, that when they're translated in the proper way.
Absolutely. Well, it's funny. I learned when I went on a mission trip in Cape Town, South Africa, they taught me how to say two phrases. They taught me how to say I love you, ekesliferio, and how to say I hate you, ekatio. So fast forward, we have some students that are on campus from Cape Town, and the husband and the wife and I like to tease each other. And so every time I'd walk by, I would always go, ekatio, as I'd walk by. And she'd be like, are you saying you hate me? Every time. And so when we had them move, they're now in Louisiana and doing a great work out there. But when they moved, they were all the way at the other end of the apartments. And I just yelled at the top of my lungs, ekesliferio. And then I waited a beat. And then I said, ekatio. And then that was the last time I spoke to them in person. And so you're definitely right, though. You think you're saying one thing and then you might be saying another. And that's important for sure. Yeah. Methane gas. For them, that had to be such an insane pull to describe the cake like it's methane gas.
And if you could see the expression on the faces, I learned the lesson.
That's
Be careful. And my friends that would go with me would always say, Charlie, be careful that you have it translated in the proper way, because it can come out really funny.
We were in Murmansk, and it was 14 below, and we were trying to hand out literature, with gloves on, so everything's sticking, and you're trying to hand out. And we had learned a couple of phrases, something to say on the sidewalk, just to get their attention. And, the people there, of course, like I say, it was 14 below, and they're getting somewhere. They're not wanting to look at you. They're not slowing down. And so it was just kind of a, everybody's fast paced, moving on. And so you're almost kind of standing out in their way every time, and just trying to catch their attention. And people wouldn't even look up at us. And we're just trying to hand them something. They grab it and keep moving, or they just brush us off, And so finally, Larry Fife was with me, and he just started speaking in English. The phrases weren't working, whatever. We were just trying to say, hey, we're having a gospel meeting. Hey, we're teaching the Bible, or something just quick, brief, and easy that we could remember at the time. I don't even remember what it was now, how to say it, but I probably wasn't saying it right then. But anyway, so we just started speaking in English, and all of a sudden the traffic halted. I mean, they would just stop, and so and then we would have like 10 or 12 people around us, and so then we would be talking. We're hollering for the translator to come over there, and we have one between three of us out on the corner, and he's like back and forth, and so we're trying to have conversation, and it was just funny, because you're absolutely right, just trying to get those phrases just right and say them, and I know I'm going to mess it up, because I'm just a South Georgia boy. I'm not going to get it. It's not going to come out right when I say it. I promise you. Right. So anyway, I've been there. That's a hard one. But I haven't told anybody their cake was methane gas.
I don't think anyone else has ever told.
No one's ever done
Only
that.
Brother Charles says that happened to him.
I'll never forget it.
Look, if there's someone sitting at home, right? If there's someone sitting at home listening to this right now and going, I can relate to Brother Charles because I did that too. We want to know about it.
Please
email us.
Email us.
We will give the information.
I will never be offered cake anywhere again, I guess.
My dad tells the story about how he had gotten a cake from one of his secretaries for a birthday or some type of milestone in his life that they wanted to help him celebrate. And it was German chocolate cake. And he's not a fan of German chocolate cake. It's just not his thing. And so he said, I will try a piece of it though. And she was nice enough to give it to me, and I will eat a bite of it. And he did, and he ate it, and he said, I still don't like it. It's still not my thing, but I have to find something positive to say. And so told her the next day, that cake sure was moist. I really appreciate that. Thank you. Fast forward however long later, he's teaching a Bible class on temptation. And he made the statement that a lot of preachers have made before, there are things that tempt you, but don't tempt me. And he said, you could never tempt me with a piece of German chocolate cake. I don't like it. I think and he described it. It's not his thing. He's not a fan of it. Well, she was sitting in that class. And so the next day he walks into the office and she goes, so you didn't like my German chocolate cake? He said, it really was moist though. I promise. He said, it really did. So that's something that's funny because you put your foot in your mouth and don't even realize it. I didn't know that I had done this, but over in Cape Town, it's very improper to put your hands in your pockets during like the invitation, especially. Well, I get nervous. I don't know what to do with my hands, so I put them in my pocket so I don't do anything with my hands. And I walk down from delivering the invitation there, and I immediately stick my hands in my pockets. And my father-in-law is like, get your hands out of your pockets. What are you doing? Like, get your hands out of your pockets. And I was like, oh. And I just kind of put them and held them together. But I also made the mistake of saying, you'll never see a hearse pulling a U-Haul. And everyone there was like, what's a U-Haul? And so that happens, And so I love the stories like that. Right. Where it's a misunderstanding because you thought you were being nice, and then everybody's like, no. What other story did you say you had from Russia?
Well, it was after a worship service. I was going back to my flat, and the person that was helping me while I was there, she said, do you need anything from the store, the little shop? I said, no, I think I'm okay. Well, she walked back to her house, her flat, and I thought, I really need some juice. I don't have any orange juice or grape juice or anything at the flat. So I go into this little shop by myself, and I'm looking up at the counter, and I pointed up to what I thought was grape juice. And I pointed, I want that. And so they brought it down from the shelf and gave it to me. I paid for it, went back to the flat. Well, when I was there, I had a problem with my computer. And I called my translator and I said, I need some help with my computer. Could you and your father come over and help me? Yeah, I'll be there. We'll be there in just a little bit. So her father, who is the preacher, Nikolai, in Sosnogorsk, he and his daughter came over to help me with my computer. Well, while they were there, I said, would y'all like something to drink? Yes, would be fine. I said, I have grape juice and I've got Coke. Which one would you like? Well, the young lady said, I want a Coke. The father said, I want some grape juice. So I go and pour the grape juice, bring it to her father and give her the Coke. He takes a sip of the grape juice and he said, this is wine. I said, no, it's not wine. I bought grape juice. No, it is wine. So I take the grape juice, what I thought was grape juice, from him, and I want it to be prefaced. I do not believe in social drinking. I was not an American missionary going over there participating in social drinking of wine, but I had bought what I thought was grape juice. I offered it to the preacher there. You can imagine that had he not taken that, had she not told me that was wine, can you imagine that I would be drinking that, not knowing what it was, and got a little lightheaded walking down the street in Sosnogorsk. There goes that American missionary. He's weaving and walking a little unsteady. Has he been drinking? And so it is always a good thing to be sure when you're on a foreign field that what you buy is exactly what you think it is, because I bought what I thought was grape juice that became wine. And as Paul Harvey would say, the rest of the story is this. Whenever I realized it was wine, immediately I get up, take the box, and pour out all of that wine down the drain so that they will know I am not going to be drinking this when they leave. But I've got the little box in my office as a memory of that funny story of a missionary, a preacher going and buying what he thought was grape juice that turned out to be wine.
I won't say who the preacher was, but I heard a story told by a preacher once where it wasn't quite as innocent in what you said. He didn't intend it to be anything bad, but he didn't buy it accidentally. He was doing a youth day on alcohol. That was his assigned subject. And so he thought, I think I should show to these young people just how harmless this can seem. Mm-hmm. So he walked across the street to the local gas station and bought a can of beer and then put it under the podium And when he got up to preach, he said, look at how innocent this looks, and said it on the podium. And he said, looking back at that now, I realize that was one of the dumbest things I've ever done. But then he said, ironically, they never invited me back. I'm not sure why. And I said, maybe because you put an alcoholic beverage in the pulpit. But that's something that I think we can all relate to. I heard a story of someone where they were on a cruise ship and they were trying to explain they'd forgotten the emblem of grape juice for the Lord's Supper, and they were trying to get what they needed. And they were given 2 small things of wine and didn't know it. And so, things like that happen a lot, and you have to be careful. I sometimes wonder when you take the ones that are the pre-made ones and it tastes so sour and so bad, I sometimes wonder if it's fermented somehow in the process of being in that little container. So I can see how that would happen. But foreign country, how would you know?
My wife and I had a similar experience, Michael, in Africa, where the worship service, they were giving the emblems, what we thought was grape juice. My wife took a sip and it went down real strong and choked her. And she looked at me and she said, is this wine? Is this fermented? I said, as I drank a little bit, I think it is. So in situations like that, you don't participate with an idea or with a feeling that you approve of drinking alcoholic beverage, but on the mission field, these things happen.
That's right. You never know. I mean, things take place that are so foreign because it's foreign country.
Right.
I mean, you don't know the difference in everything. Like when we were in Cape Town, how many things were so different? When you were in Russia, how many things were so unique and different from you? I remember at the burger diner place there in Cape Town, I don't remember what it was called, but I asked for ketchup and they brought it to me. And I went and I poured it all over my burger, and it did not look like ketchup. It was nowhere close to looking like ketchup. And I thought, that's not ketchup. There's no way that's ketchup. That's something else. And I took a bite of it, and it was like super sweet, and it didn't taste at all like ketchup. And I asked Megan, because she was living there as a missionary for 9 months. And I asked Megan, I said, what is this? And I don't remember if she even knew or not, but we finally figured out that that's their version of what they put on a burger as ketchup. They have ketchup there, but just not at that restaurant. I remember thinking that was really strange that there'd be a restaurant that wouldn't have ketchup until I was traveling somewhere, and I stopped at a Wendy's to get lunch. And I said, I'd like to get a burger with cheese, ketchup, and mustard only. And she said, sir, we're not a mustard store. And I said, what? I said, I've never heard that in my life. I said, what do you mean? She said, we don't serve mustard here. And I said, Wendy's doesn't serve mustard? And she said, well, I don't know if other Wendy's serve mustard, but we don't serve mustard here. We're not a mustard store. And I thought, okay, so I guess don't give me the mustard then because you don't have it. She said, no, there's some packets of mustard over there you could take and put on your burger. And so that's what I did. Then we were driving recently somewhere, and I said, hey, we'll go to Love's to fill up. And they've got the styrofoam glass, the styrofoam cups, and we'll get a cup of ice, and we've got Dr. Peppers and what we need to drink already in the car, and we'll save some money and not have to buy a full drink. And the styrofoam cups are the ones they keep the ice colder longer. It doesn't sweat like the plastic ones. I walk in, and it's nothing but plastic cups. And I'd never seen that. And so I went over to the guy, and I said, when did Love's switch to plasticware, for the cups and all that? And he said, we've never had styrofoam cups. And I said, yeah, you have. I said, I travel, for work. I always go to Love's to fill up, and I've gotten styrofoam cups just last week. And he said, no, sir, you don't understand. We're not allowed to have styrofoam cups in this facility in this state because of a law that the shipping distribution company in Baltimore, Maryland that sends us stuff, they've got a law that they're not allowed to make styrofoam. So because of our distributor, we're not allowed to have that. And I was like, well, that's just another reason to not like Baltimore then, isn't it? So there's always something unique that you don't understand that is unique to that specific place. You said that you had 3. Have you told all 3 yet? Or do you have one more?
One more.
Okay.
This was the first year that I went to Russia, and you have your people that help you translate. A friend of mine that we made the trip together with several others, we were invited by our translators for a birthday party at their flat. There's a couple of the translators, and my friend and I, we were going to go and enjoy a little birthday party with just some refreshments and something to drink and all. And the first thing I want to preface what I'm going to say about this little story is that I do not believe in social drinking. I do not believe in alcohol consumption of any amount. And we told them that. We said up front, because in Russia, Wayne, you've been there, and I don't know if you did, Michael.
I have not.
In Russia, that's just something that's a lifestyle. They, at that time, were just drinking. And it really was something that didn't bother them. But it did us because we had convictions about it. We told them up front, no alcohol, we will not drink any. Oh, we understand. So the little lady brings out some strawberry juice. I'm drinking the strawberry juice, and my friend is, and we look at each other and said, this tastes a little funny. But I told the ladies, we don't drink alcohol. This is not alcohol. We're not, sir. But the more I drank it, the lighter-headed I began to feel. And I drank more, a little bit more, and things got to be a little funny, and, things were just a little bit confusing. And I said, we do not drink alcohol. And as I began to feel a bit more lightheaded, I said, well, how did you make this strawberry juice? Well, we take sugar, we take water, we take some strawberries, and we mix them all together, and we set the strawberry juice in the windowsill for 25 days. 25 days, that strawberry juice had been sitting in the windowsill and fermented. So here we were drinking something that we thought was not alcohol, was not fermented. It was fermented strawberry juice that we drank that day. And every time I tell this story, we have folks that say, I think I'm going to bring you some strawberry juice. I said, no, I don't want any strawberry juice because of the experience I had in Russia with having fermented strawberry juice served to us at a little birthday party that day.
It reminds me of the Ray Stevens song, it talks about the VBS fill-in preacher or whatever, and they had served him some lemonade, and he just kept drinking it. Well, they had played a prank on him. The young kids played a prank and, mixed alcohol in it or whatever. And he talks about that seminary and kept that lemonade close. He just kept it going, When I was in Russia, that was the thing that I think shocked me the most. Of course, there's no age limit either, so there's, you have teenagers or even preteens maybe walking around. We would walk through parks and see kids, on park benches or whatever, and they're just sitting around drinking. And it blew my mind. In the area where we were, they had just built, what would be similar to, when we first got Super Walmart, when Walmart had finally grown up and, they had groceries and everything in it, and it was this big deal. Well, they had gotten this huge supermarket, and you could buy everything from, fresh fish in the middle of it, it was a full fish market and all these things on the side. And you buy clothes, you could buy your snow tires, but they had 6 full, as long and deep as the store was, 6 full aisles of, so technically 12 sides, or whatever. You walk down 6 aisles of nothing but hard alcohol. And it just kind of blew me away. But I was thinking about I'll end with this real quick. When this is part 2 of the Russian story. But,
there's a part 2, and we didn't even have to wait a year to hear it.
So I can just hold it.
Don't you dare.
So anyway, we had left. Previously, we were trying to get back to after we finally gone to McDonald's, and we had gotten to Baskin Robbins, and we got some sweets or whatever. We thought, we want some coffee before we go back to the hotel and have to get on the plane. And so we were looking all over trying to find there should be some kind of coffee house. Well, we're preacher students. We know a little bit of Greek, and so we're looking at the signs up there. We can start looking and making out coffee. Ooh, that's got to be coffee right there. It's a coffee house, So we go in there and order, and Larry Fife is with me, and Larry's like 6, I don't know, 8, 9. He's tall, and I'm 5, 8, 9. So he's big old tall guy going along with me. So we looked like an odd couple to begin with, walking around. And so anyway, we go in this coffee shop. And so, and I order, and this some kind of chocolate mocha, and trying to make out what their menu actually said, and nobody's there to order for us, So I'm just kind of pointing at things that looks like chocolate right there. I want that, and so, well, Larry orders basically what would be a caramel macchiato, and so we just take a seat off to the side. We're sitting off in a kind of a window. We can see the streets in St. Petersburg right there, and we're just kind of watching. And finally, they bring them out to us. And for Larry, who's big old tall guy and everything, they bring out this little tiny, it looks basically just a espresso shot is what it looked like, but it was supposed to be a little caramel macchiato, and I've got a picture of it. But anyway, and then they bring out my chocolate coffee, basically, is what it amounted to, and that thing was that big around, this huge saucer. And it just was so disproportionate, for what we got everything. So it was more ironic than funny. But
no, it's funny.
Well, that is
anyway.
Yeah.
Don't sell yourself short like that, man. You're a funny guy.
We had a good time.
Yeah, when you bring
after all that we had gone through that day, it was nice to just sit there and enjoy some coffee.
When Wayne brings stories to did that really happen, they're always funny. But sometimes Wayne's just like, no, I got anything.
No, I don't have anything.
Nothing funny has ever happened to me in my entire life, ever.
And
I know that's not true. I think a lot of it's just you don't want to go on record.
There's a lot of that.
That's right. And there's some wisdom in that. Brother Charles, do you have anything else you want to say?
No, I'm just honored to be with you guys.
We're so grateful you did. Thank you.
Glad you're with us
yes,
today.
We're glad, that the Bible says that there is a time to laugh. It's a biblical principle that it's okay to get together and laugh. And one thing that I like about doing this program is we get to hear from a lot of different preachers, a lot of different things that have happened to them, and especially in cases like yours, that they stayed in the ministry all the same, and that it didn't deter them from preaching the gospel. So thank you so much, and we look forward to the next time we have you on the program with us. And then Wayne, we'll be back next Tuesday with another guest, Eric Garner.
Absolutely.
We're looking forward to that. And until then, people just need to take care and be very careful what you drink overseas.
Absolutely.
Right.